All right, recording.
Hello, everyone. Long time no see.
Yeah, hello.
In today's meeting, I think we have two items on our agenda list. And first is mine, so I'll start. We have a long-standing issue of discussing the Kube-prometheus release process and all the caveats around auto-merging versions, what supported versions do we have, do we want to tag releases or not? Up to this point, we were using mostly release branches, and tags were. I sincerely don't know why we were even doing tags, maybe for release notifications. But what we mostly advertise is using main branch. However, not everyone wants to use main branch, so we are pointing them to use release branches. However, that is not a common thing for multiple people. So what they are used to is having tagged releases as something that they want to use. However, due to how JSON works, I don't know if that is viable or feasible. I would like to hear your opinions on this. What should we do with Kube-prometheus? Should we start tagging those releases using that? Should we remove the tags going forward? And any other opinions?
Personally,
I think, go ahead.
please. Okay. Personally, what we use in Gitpod is always main. We do get some bumps every now and then, like things get randomly broken, but we just fix in like one day. It's no big deal. I understand that people do not want to get those surprises, like randomly one PR breaks a Grafana dashboard. Yeah, regarding tags or branches, I don't know.
Maybe just to clarify, is it even possible to use only the main branch given the supportability with Kubernetes, different Kubernetes versions? Does the main branch always support the last 3 versions? Should the main branch only support the last version? Is there a convention in place?
Yes, there is a convention in place. We support last 2 releases for Kubernetes. As far as I remember, this is also what Kubernetes recommends. Only the last two releases are supported. So the main is always on the same level of support as Kubernetes guarantees. However, we need to keep in mind that what Kubernetes suggests is not what vendors do. So if you are using AWS, you may not even have access to the latest Kubernetes version, and the second to the last might be just rolling out, which means people who are using that may not be able to switch quickly to main, and they are kind of out of support for Kube-prometheus, because at that point, we will be switching, for example, let me just go to the repository because I don't even remember what we are supporting right now. So with current, we are supporting Kubernetes 123 and Kubernetes 122. However, when we release 0.11, we will be supporting only 122 and 124. I don't know if 123 is available at many vendors. Those I'm talking mostly about things like AWS, Azure, GCP, and all that. And we need to accommodate the migration time between platforms. That's why we kind of have those release branches, so you can use different Kubernetes versions, apart from the fact that OpenShift is also using those, which we kind of want to accommodate for. So, yeah. I hope that answers your question.
But
Yeah.
not officially supporting doesn't mean that it doesn't run. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I
For me,
try Kubernetes on old versions and things just work as well. It's just that we don't test on CI, I guess.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly the guarantee that everything can work
and run basically. Yeah.
and run, but we have no way to know, or we don't even want to know if it works, because that would mean that we need to support more versions.
I think Philip also wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I mean, for us, OpenShift, I think the whole release branch, and we have automated the bumping the dependencies and all that. There's that. I think that flow works fairly well for us. I can see from an end user point of view how it might be a little bit painful not to have tags and stuff. Kind of the whole nature of the JSON thing kind of makes the release branch beneficial for us, I think. It's not to say we couldn't do both, I guess. We could tag releases from the release branch or something, but there's no pain points for us, I would say, really, on the OpenShift side.
So what I would like to say regarding to this whole release process and everything around it, it kind of relates to the fact that we don't even have any changelog, any notification of what was actually changed between those versions. We do put those information into PR descriptions right now, the same way as in Prometheus Operator repository. However, we never use that. There is no changelog file, there is nothing in releases. So I would like to clarify the release process to start working on that and notify people what has actually changed, because this is kind of important for when you are running the infrastructure to know what was changed between those versions. And as far as minor versions, this is fairly easy to do, because we can have the same process as we have in Prometheus Operator. And for that, this is simple. However, the missing part is that, or maybe not even missing part, but if we do this, then release branches. Sorry, I have someone coming over. So if we do release branches and we use it like that, we could potentially create full releases and do point releases like bug fixes and everything. However, I don't know if we want to go with that route. So this would mean that we have like the same release process and supportability and all that for Kube-prometheus as in Prometheus Operator. So, which means we would be releasing version apart from cutting branch. We would be releasing bug fix releases, which are not currently present in Kube-prometheus, which means that those releases would probably need to be released every time we backport something. And I don't know if we want to go with that route just to have like full releases and change logs. And I would like to hear your opinions on this.
Yep. I did add a change log for the last release. I think there was one there for the previous one too, but aside from that, there wasn't anything. But yeah, I kind of agree. Like, it just seems like a lot of, well, maybe some external people might have different views, but from my point of view, at least, it just adds overhead to backport those and cut a release for the benefits that we would actually get out of that. Sure, it would make things clearer. Someone go to GitHub and check the releases and see what's been patched in each release. But from our perspective, I don't think we will gain much, at least.
Okay, but for the Prometheus operator, we also just keep rolling forward, and only when we need to do a backport, then we cut a release branch. So at least that has been our practice when we do releases. We basically tag a commit on main, So this kind of eliminates the need to have both tags and release branches unless you want to do a backport.
That's the same case for Kube-prometheus.
But we do every Monday those updated dependencies that updates the dashboards and alerts. And in the past we backported that to many branches. I don't know why today we just do it for main.
I think the automation should work for all of those. However, bear in mind this is not backport. This is a bit different workflow for what is actually happening there. So this is kind of synchronizing backports from other repositories. It's not doing the synchronization for, well, how can I say it? Let's assume that Kubernetes Mixin released, like, is on main and backported something to already released branch. That released branch is usually pinned in some released branch of Kube-prometheus. And we would like to synchronize that automatically into Kube-prometheus. We don't synchronize main, we don't change versions of components. We want to synchronize that backport because probably something in that JSON was a fix. So what we do is synchronize only those parts in those weekly updates. What we see is that mostly on Monday, we have update on main. That is true because mostly main changes in dependent projects and, well, basically everywhere. However, we don't see many of updates for release branches because those other projects also don't have so many bug fixes. So,
Okay.
which means that we have a running pipelines for those release branches, but there is nothing to commit, hence there is no PR. And I would like to keep that workflow because this is actually keeping us in a kind of a sane place, that we have everything pinned to release branches. This is also key here, that we are not pinning to versions of JSONet components, but to branches, because those branches can roll and include those fixes. So we don't need to change the version every time we want to do something. We are pinning to a branch. That branch may contain fixes. We can update those automatically. However, here, and this is why OpenShift is also using release branch and not version, because they can do the same thing, just one step further. So if anyone from OpenShift organization does a PR to, let's say, fix something in Kubernetes Mixin that was broken in an already released branch, there is an automation in Kube-prometheus that will sync into a branch that they are using, and then there is probably some kind of automation on OpenShift side that will sync that into OpenShift, and the whole thing will propagate through the whole chain, fixing that and results in somewhere, landing somewhere. But what it means for Kube-prometheus itself is that every time something like that lands, we would probably need to put another type of automation that would just create another release, like point release for something like this. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's doable, because we can have something that will automatically publish those releases.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, just my 2 cents with my OpenShift or Red Hat hat on. We are already doing half the work. I mean, we are, like you said, Pavel, you know better than me. We are like using the release branches in Kube-prometheus for like consuming that downstream. So if either we do it upstream or we do everything downstream, I think in terms of effort, that would be roughly the same. So it's probably better for us to stick with the current approach that we have. Now, probably there could be better tooling in the CI and in the way we, like Kube-prometheus publishes tags, if that's something that people would like to see, so that it's done automatically. I would expect, like, if you you merge a change in a release branch, maybe it's a new patch version, for that particular. I mean, there is no need to wait for more changes to land. You probably want to have like one tag per peer, pull request being merged in the release branches. That would probably work for most people. And people might still want to pin to a particular branch, no matter what, like they think manually, that should work. If they are more conservative, then they just stick to a particular tag. But I mean, that should be doable, like you said, Pavel, to improve the tooling so that it's basically managed automatically. What do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly what I would like to see. I'm currently for like 4 months working with Helm ecosystem and all the tooling around it, and looking at how they are doing things, how we are doing things. And one thing that is very common in that ecosystem when you're doing Helm charts is doing a release. It's usually a patch release every time you change something in the chart. Since we are kind of an alternative to Helm charts, I would like to see maybe the same on at least on released branches. So we are doing the backport. Let's do an automatic patch release. I don't know how we would sync that with changelog or anything like this, but it seems to me that this is something that people are used to have, so we can just follow the suit. It, of course, wouldn't change the workflow that we have. I wouldn't want to go and remove release branches because I use them, so that will break also my workflow. But what I see is that there are frequent comments on, like with the title, what should I use? Should I use release branches? Should I use tags? And I just like to clarify that. And if we think that this can be something that, if we agree that we can do tags in addition to branches, I can start looking at that also.
Yeah, for me, a branch is actually just like an internal implementation. And for me, the tag should be the API, because it then ties in nicely with GitHub releases. It feels like much more native to the Git and GitHub ecosystem. Whereas a branch is something that a team uses internally to make sure that they manage commits properly.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Okay, so I think we have a consensus on that. I will start looking at some ways to improve this and create some releases, like in an automated fashion. And regarding that, the thing that we have is this auto merge. Arthur, do you have like idea what happened there?
No, yeah. So the step that enables auto merge requires the pull request number, and it opens for main, but all the other branches that we tried, there were no updates, just like you said, and therefore no PRs. And then the following step failed because there was no PRs created.
So we just need to check if the PR was created.
Yeah, but I don't know if the step can do that, if there is an option. But yeah, the idea is that. But I can take a look at this. I'll create a fork and not a Hey implementation on Gitpod.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have that topic covered. So there's one more thing Philip pointed. Discuss one of the PRs about extracting common Prometheus fields in a separate struct. Do you want to go over this, Philip?
Yeah, sure. So this is kind of a preparation work for introducing the Prometheus agent CRD. The idea that we discussed maybe a couple of weeks ago was to have a common struct that we can reuse for generating, to embed in the Prometheus CRD, but also in the Prometheus agent CRD. So that would contain the fields that are common to both kind of deployment modes. And I just did some kind of investigation work, more of a spike to see how that would turn out, whether it's doable or not. And to make sure that, if we decide to go that route, everything will continue working as before. And this is what that pull request does. The reason why it's large is because I had to refactor quite a bit of the documentation generation tool, because we actually don't want these common fields to appear in the documentation because they're kind of internal documentation. But other than that, the tests seem to be passing, and the generated documentation is also the same as before. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of raise awareness of this topic, go over the reason behind the PR, and to maybe also gather feedback on the whole approach.
I do have one question. Does it break API? Current existing one?
Oh, also, if you check the diff, there's no change in the bundle YAML, which means, okay, yes, I see what you mean. So there's no change in the bundle YAML, but that's a good point. I think that if you want to create a Prometheus instance externally, then yes, that's going to be a change. Maybe in the generated client set, or maybe no, the client set's going to stay the same, but the way that you create the Prometheus is going to be different. So yes, in that case, this would be a breaking change. So, and no, we have, I guess it's in that case, maybe it's not something that we want to proceed with.
So yeah, that would be, for me, like you probably hinted at, that would be a change in the Go client bindings, so to say. But given that if you import the packages, you import a version 0 something, we don't have we are not obliged to follow or to honor the stability guarantees, following Go modules.
No. We are. The API spec, status, and our user-facing objects may change, but in a backward compatible way. And this is
the API will not change. The REST API will not change. This is what Philip said. What is going to change is so you might have another operator using the Prometheus Operator client to create custom resources that may not compile if you start using the newer version of the Go module, but
okay,
not
so,
in ways that would be completely incompatible. Like you'll have to rewrite parts of your code to make it compile again, but it should not be blocked by that, so to say.
Got it. So it's basically a breaking change in the library, but it shouldn't affect how we are doing anything.
But yeah, to add more on the topic, that's something we discussed with Philip. Obviously, since we are going to share code between the V1 CRD and something which is probably going to be V1 Alpha 1, we don't want, if we discover that we need to change a field, and instead of think something stupid, but instead of using a string, we need to use an integer, obviously, then that means that we need to extract that field that may live in the common structure to leave it untouched for the V1 CRD and have it change for the V1 Alpha 1 CRD, obviously. So that's something we need to take into account in the future, but just for anything that may change in the Prometheus CRD today. I mean, we are not changing the type of a field like that. Yeah, obviously.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah, and I mean, also obviously the alternative would be to have the fields duplicated, which is also an option. In that case, it might be maybe harder. So the advantage is kind of you have the APIs moving independently, but it might be a bit harder in that case to reuse some of the configuration generation code, for example, because now you can just propagate the common the common field to some function that's going to act on it. Whereas in the other case, we might need to duplicate a lot of the controller's code as well. But anyway, we can also, I mean, we don't have to make a decision now. This is just about kind of bringing the topic to awareness.
That's great. I didn't look at the PR yet, just looking briefly at this, and we'll take a look at it later, probably with some questions about how these things work. But super happy to see progress in this space. Thank you very much.
So yeah, that's that for that topic. Is there anything else? Because I think that Arthur also brought up automatically merging Dependable PRs, which we might, I think, have time to discuss quickly.
Not much to discuss. Just I introduced the PR. We noticed that it was broken, and I think we briefly talked about it. It's just that so we opened PR for several branches, but the automation noticed that some branches didn't exist. The PR didn't exist because nothing changed, and then they step failed. You just need to check if the PR exists before creating.
I think you are talking about two different things. One is for Kube-prometheus, the automatic merge things that we have internally only, and one is Dependable updates in Prometheus Operator. I don't think.
Okay, that was not me.
Yeah,
it was someone else maybe. I thought maybe I just confused the two things, but now that we're on it, just a quick question: does it make sense to consider merging Dependable PRs automatically, or do we want to manually review them and merge them?
I'm not exactly sure because we have few things that are pinned directly, and Dependable cannot update those because they are pinned. So we probably don't want to mix like things like updating Thanos and not updating Prometheus. So those probably will need to have some manual review. And if we go with automation and putting automatic upgrades, so this means that if everything compiles and kind of works, we can end up with two different versions and states that everything can work, but we are not exactly sure about performance and some tricks that might be hidden. Because we can end up with using completely different versions of Prometheus and from ones that are used by panels and whatnot. So I would be cautious with this one. Thank you.
Yeah, I would mostly agree. I think the amount of pull requests we got from Dependable are quite manageable so far. I mean, we are not just JavaScript project with hundreds of dependencies. So yeah, it does the heavy lifting. Like you said, Pavel, there are a few subtleties that may want to kind of have an external acknowledgement that yes, this is good too much. We can probably revisit if that's still too much work. Yep.
Also, yeah, I can also see the Kubernetes dependencies getting out of sync because they need to be the same version. So in theory, you could cut a release with with a mismatch in the versions. Yeah.
Yeah, we basically have pin for alert manager, for client Go, and for logging library right now, I think. And few that are possible to upgrade via Dependable, but I'm not exactly sure. So we would need to check those out. Plus, On top of that, if you don't have updates from Dependable, maybe something is broken the same way as it was broken for a few months when we actually included the Dependable. So
Yeah, it's a good sign to check.
I don't think we have any other agenda items. So
That was a short one.
So if you want, we can go and triage some bugs. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah.
I have time.
So maybe let's go with Kube-Prometheus first. It should be quicker than with Prometheus. I can share my screen. Just give me a second to click through. So, we have few that are here, and maybe we have something that are actually breaking things. Let's go with the first one, which is Grafana dashboards imported by a config map can't be deleted. I think Arthur already answered that. And they shouldn't be deleted. So. Arthur, any comment on that? Do you remember what was happening?
From what I understood, like he spin up Prometheus, there is a dashboard in Grafana. After everything is running, he tried to delete the config map and expected the dashboard to just disappear. But I just answered like this is not exactly how it works, but I forgot to answer how does he delete a Grafana dashboard.
And maybe we could put a documentation on that, so those dashboards aren't actually removed. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll answer him.
Because I assume that might be a pretty frequent question, because our setup for Grafana can be a bit
Confusing.
weird, yeah, and confusing. So we have this is not the first one about Kube-Prometheus. One was about having Kube-Prometheus alerts when not Kube-Prometheus. What I'm saying, Kube-Proxy. One was about having Kube-Proxy alerts when Kube-Proxy wasn't enabled. I think I created that PR for this. However, here, okay, there is a report that we have. What we have is not actually scraping Kube-Proxy. What is OKE? Was it OKE the OpenShift something? Kubernetes?
Yeah, OpenShift Kubernetes engine. That's basically OpenShift, but without the same like level. Not that you don't get the same support in the sense that I guess you have no support for builds for stuff like that. You only get support for the Kubernetes components, so to say.
So it looks like what they have is that they have 0 active targets, but the targets were discovered as it was 27. So maybe, do you think it might be some kind of label issue or service discovery?
I remember vaguely something about that, Kube-Proxy, because the thing is that there is probably no Kube-Proxy. We can investigate that one because that's really specific to. If it's really specific to OKE, then yeah.
Yeah, that's Kubernetes cluster is.
Yeah,
OKE.
yeah. Maybe Philip, that would be in your. Can definitely check back offline.
Thank you. Let's go to the next one. Kubeproxy down is always firing. I just created a PR for that, so this should be working. When I fix issues, and I should be done with that today. Let's say need to monitor node exporter. Need to monitor node exporter. Do you think it would be worth to put a doc about how to monitor external node exporter things from Kube-prometheus perspective?
So as I think also raised in Prometheus Operator, they wanted to scrape, was it node exporter or the kubelet?
Kubelet could
Yeah.
be scraped internally, but node exporter can be installed externally.
I think there was an issue with reported about node exporter, I think. Yeah.
But
Because-
I think it's different. Like from the Prometheus operator, they are asking to use the cluster IP, and node exporter outside of clusters is like totally different.
Oh, so it's because of different network, because node exporter is running in a host network and it's using the IP of the host and not cluster IP, right?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
But this one is, I think this one is Okay, so we have a Prometheus that is outside of the cluster and node exporter is installed by this. But isn't that just the same way as basically contacting API and getting the host IP for node exporter? Connecting through that? I will investigate that. But regarding this topic, because it's not the first time we have the question, and that question is either in Prometheus Operator or in Kube-prometheus, how to scrape something that is external to the cluster. And our common pattern is to say, hey, here's the additional scrape config fields, and then everything breaks because then we have a mismatch for how our internal objects work, how additional scrape config works. What do you think about creating a document and describing a different approach to that by using endpoints object? Basically create endpoint service and the service monitor. What I mean is that I'm actually using that concept. So I have a service monitor for node exporter that is not inside the cluster. It's an external instance from the cluster perspective, but everything like Prometheus operator, Prometheus, Kube-prometheus is installed inside the Prometheus cluster, which means I can put service monitor. I can match a service with cluster IP none because it needs to be headless. And I can manually then create create an endpoint. So it's like 3 objects instead of 2 to monitor something that is externally to the cluster. And if you think that we can advertise this instead of additional scrape config, I can write a doc.
Can this be maybe just a stepping stone or an intermediary solution? And then we can also consider adding like an external service monitoring Prometheus operator that people can use.
I think we might be better. Our time might be better spent on generic scrape config than creating new service monitors for this. But this is kind of what working with what we have. It also doesn't cover like 100% of cases. There are cases where this won't work. Yeah, so the question still stands.
Yeah.
If we want this, I can write a doc.
Yeah, I think for me, that makes sense. I mean, this is what we do for the kubelet endpoints. So there is no reason why, like if that can help people and unblock them, that we don't provide like hints for users that, hey, if you want, you can build your own endpoint object, fill it in, and then that would just be picked up by the service monitor. And that's about it. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I've seen the same pattern recommended in some old PRs or issues that I came across over time. I'm not sure exactly those issues, but I think Frederick or someone may have suggested that a couple of times before, so sounds reasonable. It works. That's good.
Okay, I will write a doc about it. So we have two more about the securing Kube-prometheus by Philip. How's that going?
Yeah, I haven't. I just went through and documented the issues based on the output of the CI. I know Arthur's done a great job on implementing a couple of them, and I haven't got around to this yet. To be honest, I can tackle. I'm happy to put my name on both of those and take them.
It's I just wanted to know because I saw a lot of PRs about the hardening of Kube-prometheus and just wanted to.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's been going good. If I saw your latest PR, Arthur, briefly, and I think we're down to like 16 from the original 40, so the threshold. So that's making progress. I've added one issue I did add. I created a document where we highlight some of the things we've had to exclude purposely. So yeah, look, it's going well, and we're making progress on it. I think there's 2 or 3 maybe left to do.
I believe those two, like disabling ingress and egress and automatic mapping of service accounts, are the only 2 left. With those 2, we are basically 0%.
Wow, that's great. Thank you both for working on this. It's great progress.
I think, did you have an open PR, Pavel, about network policies? I think that might be applicable too.
Yes.
And I know that there was some comment on that, but I'm not sure if that's ready to merge or whatever, but it is green in CI because I looked at it earlier.
Yes, I do have a PR about network policies. I don't remember what was happening there, but I can refresh that.
Like that PR is the problem is that Prometheus, you are blocking ingress and egress from Prometheus adapter. And I think Max mentioned that the adapter needs egress from the Kubernetes API server or something like this.
Oh,
and
okay.
This will break a lot of stuff.
Okay, I will adjust it. I'm not using Prometheus adapter. That's probably why I didn't caught it.
So I think if you do get back to taking a look at that and take a look at 1596, then it might be able to close out that ticket there too from memory.
156.
1596 in the issues. It was like the
9. 6. I will just assign myself.
So I think it's very related, and I'm not sure if it covers it entirely, but there's definitely a good bit of overlap there.
Okay. Thank you. So we have unable to probe monitor issues. Anyone wants to take that? Seems like someone has problems with black box exporter. Okay, no one. I will assign.
I could take. I was just reading it there. I can take that one. Pavel, take a look at that one.
Okay, thank you.
Question. just a general question. When we get these issues that are opened, and a lot of them are for client support, and we answer them, they kind of seem to remain open. Like, what are we supposed to do? Should we close them ourselves? Should we?
There's a stale bot. It closes, I think.
We are closing those after half a year.
Sure. But say we resolve something, it's all in agreement. Should we just close it at that point, or?
I don't see anything that would prevent us from, and I'm fine with closing those if we see that this is solved.
Cool. It's just I had a couple that could have been probably closed, but looking back, I was seeing that they weren't getting closed, so I was wondering, are we just leaving them open just for like educational purposes? I know people can still see closed issues as well, but maybe more than likely they are to look at the open issues first. So
yeah,
just wanted to know.
Just as always, be polite. Say that if they have something else, we can always reopen that, so we have visibility. Okay, and I see there's quite a lot of Podwinter. We have like 8 minutes, and we can go. It's basically we went through, I think, last 2 weeks. So maybe in last 2 minutes we can go to Prometheus Operator and see what is happening there. I'm sorry, I'm just going through different repositories, but our time is limited and number of issues just piles up. And I think you can probably see I'm not even seeing all of them. So anyone wants to take over? Because I wasn't looking at Prometheus Operator repository for some time now.
Maybe if you could open up the second one, which was like,
sure.
Yeah, I think kind of related to the previous discussion about node exporter. Yeah, Prometheus should scrape node exporter using private cluster IPs. I replied something which was not relevant, I guess. I confused node exporter with kubelet.
How does Prometheus scrape node exporter now? Do they have to manually? Yeah, can we maybe read the ticket again?
Yeah, so basically what is happening here is they are complaining about node exporter being scraped through host IP and not
host IP, okay.
cluster IP. This is because that's the default how Kube-prometheus deploys node exporter. That's also the default how Helm chart deploy node exporter. And this will be a default because node exporter is using host network to gather information about network, basically. And we cannot containerize that part and put into proper C group or namespace. So this will translate to Kubernetes setting endpoints object to host IP and not cluster IP. And thus, if endpoints have the IP of the host and not cluster, then it will communicate through that IP, and Prometheus will scrape through this IP.
Does the node exporter service, is it a node port or is it a cluster IP type service?
I can tell you that in
Node port, I believe.
Yeah, because it might actually be the reason.
Service. Cluster IP none.
It's cluster IP none. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if setting the cluster, actually removing that field is going to help. I don't know if that's going to assign internal IPs to the service or not. We're gonna have to check that.
I'm not sure either, but yeah, it would be good checking what is the default for cluster IP and if that will
maybe
be...
you can assign that one to me. I'll take a look.
That was this part. If you need help with this, I can help.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make sure that the reporter gets an answer. But if you want to take a look as well, that'd be fine.
Because this has like two cases. Bear in mind that this has this is possible, but this is two different types of deployments that can happen here. Because if they deployed through Helm chart, then you don't have kube-RBAC proxy in front of node exporter, which means it can be different things. And if they deployed through Kube-Prometheus, the JSON version, then there is a kube-RBAC proxy in front. This can have different consequences on how service is also configured. So it would be a good idea to call them for the service object. Okay, what's next?
So the GKE issue, I think, can be closed because they did find a solution.
I think this one I commented recently. That's basically, yeah.
Ah, no, that was then a different one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is the whole thread about allowing to resize.
Expanding the volume.
And someone described how it can be done on as a workaround around stateful set controller, so we can pause reconciliation and do weird logic underneath.
Yeah, I'm not sure if PO should actually do that. Feels a bit intrusive to manage an externally defined object.
So I think I've tested that. I've tested that recently. Like you can edit manually the size of the PVC if the storage class supports expansion. You can increase the size, restart the pods, and then that will be picked up. And obviously you need to make it consistent, you need to align in the Prometheus custom resource to modify also the volume claim template so that you have the same size everywhere. So that should work. There might be side effects that I haven't noticed, but I mean, we can't do anything until Kubernetes supports it natively.
So it's targeting as alpha for 124. Yeah. Considering that if this gets into, we will still not be able to use that.
Exactly. Yep. But I would be very wary to implement something in the meantime, while this is really a limitation of the stateful sets right now.
So basically, if someone runs out of disk space, they need to copy manually into new PVC. And
no, if your storage class supports expanding the PVC, then you can try to do it manually. Just that if you expect, the thing that people get confused is that they modify the Prometheus object to increase the size, and they would expect that automatically the stateful set or the PVC currently attached to the stateful set got resized, which is not happening. You need to edit the PVC manually to see that happening. Restart the pods, and then that should work. But yep.
So it's the storage controller that actually needs to support resizing the underlying volume.
I think it's even like the stateful controller, set controller that needs to. Yeah.
Because you are not only modifying the PVC itself, but also the template, volume claim template.
Yeah, exactly.
The stateful set and the whole thing needs to be.
Yeah, I think the hard point is that the volume claim template needs to be edited, and the change propagated to the PVC, which should be the responsibility of the stateful set controller. But yeah.
seems like currently there is nothing else than document that and revisit in a year, because if that's
Yep.
an alpha, that's
Yep.
the soonest possible stable is in a year.
Yep. We'd have
Anyone?
to. We'd
Yep.
have to drop. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's 31.
Myself.
So
Yeah.
it was nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Have a nice time, and see
Yeah.
you in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Yeah. Bye
See you,
bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Let me stop the recording.